Welcome back to That's a Thing Day. I am with Scott Hollenbeck. I'm Josh Fabian, and we have a special guest today. Special. You're not seeing, thank God you have a beard, Sean. Thank God. So we got Sean Hollenbeck, Scott's twin brother, and honestly, without the beard, you guys could switch spots and totally can be.
Usually I have a little bit of more hair going on there, but every couple of years I get a haircut, Josh, and whether I need it or not. And I went in to just get a little bit of a trim last week, and well, you can see how that went.
And just playing off of
Full
last week's
body,
question.
Josh. Full body trim. He went.
Yeah.
But
I got the Brazilian down below and the armpits.
Okay, yeah, we're
clean.
trying to keep this so that we can post this.
My bad.
hey,
Family
let the
centric.
record show I was the first funny guy.
So last week we talked a little bit about people
right out.
arbitrarily praying for us. That was one of
Very
the
special podcast. What are we calling this?
We're going to call this Special Forces.
Yeah, just mute him for a little while so you can do the intro.
So so we talked about being prayed for arbitrarily last week, Scott, and you went to get your haircut. Why don't you tell everybody what happened?
Well, it's the law of attraction, Josh. I think, you'll hear me talking about these things, right? But it's like when we think about something, it's like a gravitational force, or we focus on a thing. So I go to get this haircut. I pull in. I see this guy outside. He's sitting on the bench. He's got his clothes and so yeah, I would call him up. I was figuring he's unhoused, which was the case. And I said, he's like, yeah, you think you can help out? And I go, look, I got an appointment, and you could see there's a lot of work to be done here. You know, and I didn't have any cash on me, but so anyway, so I go in, I get the haircut, I come out, he's still there, and his name's Mark, and we start chatting a little bit. He, thanked me for a chat and spending time with him, and we cracked up. We had some good stuff. So that goes on for like 15 minutes, and at the end, and it was absolutely hilarious because we talked about, like, there's a way to, if you want to pray with preferably someone or on someone, you just should ask. And so the guy literally, like, I was like, is this like a deja vu moment? And he goes, not that there's anything wrong with you, but would you be okay if we pray together? And I said, sure, let's do it. Now, what I wasn't expecting, and what he didn't sort of properly express in the fine print. By the way, that's my brother's dog, who we've already put outside, who needs to go in the garage. Sean, you may have to go put him in the garage. The side door's unlocked. See you later. Thanks for coming on the podcast. It's been
My
great.
sister says she can't listen.
She can't go because your dog attacks our sister. Go take care of the dog for real.
I will take care of the dog. This is a family podcast, and you're gonna get it all. All right, listen. First of all, you guys are like really hot rock star podcasters. Do you have any sponsors?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, Scott, are you saying that guy's a bum and that
God.
you can do
Oh, come on.
bumware?
Sean, we don't use it. He's a human being that's on
I know, but I'm trying to get you a sponsor.
I don't need. What I need you to do is go shut your dog
I
up.
need you to sleep on it while I go ahead and get the dog real quick.
You go take care of your
Great.
dog. We'll bring you back.
Great.
Scott can
I
finish
just
the
want to
story.
apologize to all of our listeners in advance.
This is a very high-tech podcast, as you can all tell. Lots of editing takes place.
Oh yeah. And if you put two Hollenbecks split from the same zygote into the same room, it can get a little wild. And so there's been a lifetime of this going on. And we are double Scorpios, which, this is like Saturn and Mars are in retrograde.
Stop listening to Scott.
Yeah. And then Uranus shows up, and it's just like a bomb.
Hey, Josh, first of all, that was pretty good, Scott. Here's the deal. Scott gets a haircut every couple years.
Mm-hmm.
When I need my dog to get a bath, what I do is I just show up with him.
Sean, you obviously opened the dog. Your dog is now in here with me. Let me handle this.
Yes. And I get him to drop out of his own podcast. Yes. Train is that, okay? All right, Josh, let's get on with this because we don't need him anyway. What did you want to talk about?
Come here. Well, let Scott finish his prayer story.
Well, yeah, hold on. Everybody, this is Blue. This is Sean's emotional support dog, and he really should be getting triple overtime. But anyway,
Scott,
when Sean brought him here, he smelled like he went swimming down at the local sewage pond.
Well,
but because Sean had shoulder surgery a week ago.
Oh, yeah, I got to put my sling on.
I went ahead and washed him this morning. Anyway, he's great. He did actually, without consent, get my dog pregnant, and so
No.
you'll see. Yeah, it's a true story,
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah. First of all, he brought his trampy whore dog, my niece, down to my house, and she was in heat. And you call him grandfather, Scott, show him some respect.
Oh God, this is
Let's
going
go,
off the
Josh.
rails
Scott got you.
fast.
Scott, finish the story. We're never going to get
Finish your
done here.
story. Oh God.
Josh, I'll tell it. I heard it once. So the guy starts praying.
Hang on, hang on. I'm gonna pause. Oh wait, there's Scott. I don't need to pause. He's
He's
on his side,
sideways.
but
You're
I can hear
sideways.
him. This is a lot of editing that goes on with this one.
And so ends the podcast series of
Joining us, everybody. Okay, we'll come back to Scott when he rejoins us. This is a kind of a tongue-in-cheek podcast that we do
your thing.
a little bit. But on this episode, I actually want to get into something that's a little bit more, I find interesting and probably maybe even a little bit more serious. Because Scott and I can speak to our experiences being disabled and the crazy things that have happened to us. But I think what is fascinating is the perspective of family or friends on what has happened to us. So let's just start at the beginning. So the day that Scott decided he was going to play chicken with a van and he was on a bike, where were you when you found out that he had been hit?
Wow. So you're just going right for the emotional jugular.
100%.
So our parents, we were on the swim team, and it was the summer between the end of middle school, 8th grade, and going into high school. Where we lived, it was 7th and 8th grade was middle school, and then high school is 4 years. But we lived out in the country, and we swam before we worked or school. And so in the summer, we'd go to swim practice, get into swim practice, and then go to tassel corn all day. Lovely job. Awesome. And Scott convinced our parents to let him ride our bikes in because he was going to train for his first triathlon. And I'm like, well, I'll do it too. But he ended up like saving money to get a fancy used bike, and I had a junky bike. But we did everything together as twins, right? People can appreciate that as siblings, but as twins, you do a little bit more, including sharing their excrement in at the end of your 9 months in utero when the first one out the chute defecates, and I got to take it. It's called meconium for you medical people. But anyway, so
It explains a lot.
Scott and I did a lot together. And that morning I was tired, and I just decided for what I think was the first time ever to not go to swim practice. And our parents had just agreed to let us ride our bikes like a week or two before. And it was a 5 mile straight shot. But our parents knew the road was it wasn't busy, but it was busy enough that they're like, yeah, no, not even at that time in the morning. So you only went like a quarter, half mile, and then you turned and added 4 more miles, I think it was, to the 5 mile route just to get off that road in front
This
of our
is more training in my mind.
Yeah. So here's what happened. I didn't get up. And then I awakened to a boom, a noise, screeching and a boom. And I awakened to I could hear my mother just like fast as lightning, just charging down to the car, our station wagon, and tearing out of our driveway. Because she knew that one of her kids was hurt. And I knew.
So had you guys been notified by police or something, or was it just intuitive?
No, we heard the boom.
Oh, you could hear it. You were that close to the house still that you could actually.
Scott trying to he wanted to get a jump on Elon Musk, and he thought, what I need is propulsion. So I'm going to ride my bike, get going, momentum, and then I'm going to jump in front of this van, Scooby-Doo van, going whatever it was.
It was interstellar space travel. It just didn't work out. But Josh, we would sleep in with our windows open in the summer.
Okay.
And so I went down the driveway and around, but as the crow flies, they were probably under a half a mile.
600 meters probably.
Yeah, about 600 meters from where I ended up getting, because I went down, came around, and the house is there.
Got it.
So it was pretty close. And then I had high pressure tires. So when the van hit me, you heard the high pressure tire explode. You heard the impact, the metal, the tires,
the screeching.
He hit the brake.
And we would hear that not very often, but you can hear a car when it goes by if you're 600 meters away.
There's a book called about Civil War book about acoustic signatures in battle and like how sound travels. And I ended up working in an air medical research lab in acoustics. But that it's funny, I hadn't thought about that in a long time, but that noise signature travels. So that's what happened. We heard it and then we knew it, and then it was just game on. He got life flighted out. My dad gets up. He gets like wallet. I think they got a set of clothes. And I'm like, what's oh, dad went down, he drove the other car down, then he came back and he's like packed super fast. And then life flight's coming in, landing up the road. And my dad comes back, and my sister's away at some kind of pom pom camp or speech camp or something. And my little brother's
Theater.
yeah, really. And then my dad comes back, and our dad was in the military, and he used to, we could tell his story later, but like back in Vietnam at Fort Benning, they would get the nightly or weekly Americans coming back from Vietnam at mortuary affairs. And if you were an officer in the hospital, you were part of that mortuary affairs like process and stuff. And anyway, dad shows back up, and he's just super focused, and he's running around the house and he's packing stuff. And I'm like, what happened? What's going on? He won't tell me. And then he snatches me up, like not in a bad way, but just man to man. Yeah, I'm 14, graduated 8th grader. And he says, your brother's been hit. I don't know if Scott's ever heard this. Looks me dead in the face. He says, your brother's been hit. It's bad. He's probably not going to live. He kept his composure. I'm losing it right now. But, and he said, do not go down there. And he left, and that was it.
So when he left,
Sean had to watch our younger brother.
Well, no, then the neighbors came.
Oh, that's right.
My younger brother. So I'm there alone. Don't know what to do. Don't know what happened. Don't know how to help. And I wanted to do a lot of things in life, but I was interested in medicine, but that was the beginning of my absolutely personal journey. Do not quit. I'm going to learn how to help people.
So let's give a little background on you now.
Well, and then this is the best part, because 14-year-old kid. So everybody leaves, and after about what seemed like hours, it was probably 15 minutes. You know what I did?
You left.
Well, actually, it was about an hour, because I waited for the like vehicles to leave, and when I went down there, and there was one state trooper, and his cruiser was there, and he was measuring skid marks, and then the bike was still mauled up in the ditch, and like the rubber that you see. Oh, I'm not supposed to use that. The rubber that goes around the tire to protect the tube. Like, I remember it like yesterday. I can just picture it. And he's like, was that your brother? Yeah. He was, I never knew his name. He was he was good at his job.
Yeah.
So then I came home, and I do what most young men do, and I'm mad. And I start punching the wall. I'm just punching. I'm going down the wall, and I'm knocking holes in the drywall till I misjudged and hit the stud and broke my hand. Then I realized, okay, that's not helping.
You broke your hand?
Whatever, boxer fracture. And then the rest of it happened. So there you go.
So that sent you, so I want to get into your background a little bit, because that sent you on this path of becoming a doctor, ultimately. So, and you also mentioned your dad being in the military, and you ended up enlisting as well. So maybe just, if you can just
keep it
a
short.
little bit of background on what you specialize in medically, and service-wise, just, high level overview of.
So I'll do the medical piece. So I wanted to do everything. I really was interested in ER and OB, and so I ended up choosing family medicine full service, cradle to grave, as my first residency. And I mean, delivering babies, doing ER, ICU, nursing homes, right? Cradle to grave. And at the same hospital we were born at, Martin Army Hospital, down at Fort Benning, which is, I think, Fort Moore, and it might change the name again back to Fort Benning. But so credentials wise, like what's your resume? I'm a family medicine physician. And then I became a flight surgeon. And then mid-career, I pivoted. I wanted to have a broader depth of understanding. So I pivoted to aerospace medicine, which is a very small field. And it's a component of occupational medicine and preventive medicine. And then I got a master's of public health, and then I got a military master's. Ended up running a couple of hospitals as chief medical officer. This is keeping like on the civilian side. Mm-hmm. And then I led a division at Aeromedical Research Laboratory for the government. And then when I'm trying to retire, I deputy commanded those hospitals. That's the terminology we use in military medicine. So I was a deputy commander twice, and then I deputy commanded the research lab at the end for, I think it was like the last year of my time there. And then I've testified in state and federal court as an expert witness on DOD and VA healthcare. I also got a rating as an aeromedical examiner for the FAA, and I did rotations at the CDC, NASA. So I've got a little bit more than your family medicine doc.
Okay. That's
I do consulting well, I did until what happened recently in my life.
so. I don't want to.
Yeah. And then
Nope.
what do I do in the military? So that's medicine.
Okay.
The military, I started out a young infantryman. I interviewed like all these recruiters. They kept coming thinking I'm going to sign a contract. I was literally making a nerd spreadsheet with pros and cons and like how long you would serve and what if you didn't get the job you wanted and they made you go wash dishes, So I interviewed them all and I joined the National Guard my junior year of high school. Kids, you can do this. And I literally like went to prom and then at midnight had to go to the armory and do drill. But I became an infantryman, started carrying a machine gun. I did all the infantry stuff, play more mines, all that stuff. And I loved it. It was good at it, right? It was fun. I say fun, but it was like fun to learn about like learning is a blessing. And then I went from a private to an E4. And then they found out I was in med school and they're like, you're in med school. You need to be an officer. I'm like, I like what I'm doing. They're like, you got to do it. I'm like, you can't make me. Fast forward that. I was in Air Force ROTC as an elective. You don't have to join the Air Force. You can check it out. I wanted to fly. So I checked them out. And I also wanted to go into special operations. I was mesmerized as a young man about our military history. And I was wanting to go to the Green Beret unit in Chicago that was.
I just want to jump in. First of all,
And rotate your camera, Scott.
you want me to rotate? I'm trying to figure this. I've never shot on the
Yeah.
camera, but
Yeah. And then
Sean
stop
got
touching.
my setup. Is that better?
Yeah. And then stop touching it after that.
Yeah, I'll try. There's all these ads. I guess when I put the app on, there's all these ads and stuff that are coming up, and I'm like trying to swipe them off. I just ignore them. But anyway, so Sean's talking about he wanted to get in the very special forces, and he tried out for the Special Olympics, and they were like, "You don't qualify." And then he's like, "That's it. Then I'm joining the special forces in a different way."
Well, that's not true, Scott. I did do 2 wheelchair races in Atlanta. When you bet me, I wouldn't do it.
Sean, that would be not the Special Olympics, but that's okay. Like I know
I
this
actually
is all
have
me.
questions about this.
First of all, nothing
Okay.
wrong with the Special Olympics.
Yeah, good job.
well,
Scott.
thank
Good
you,
job. We just
Scott.
lost. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thanks,
Thank
Scott.
Shame.
Just alienated like half the country.
Shame.
So I have questions about that type of stuff actually for you, but I want to let Sean finish up just his background.
Well, so like a 1-minute military. So I went from private to full bird colonel. I went from infantryman, regular straight leg infantry, non-airborne to airborne assignments, and I wanted to find the hardest job in Army medicine I could find. Like really, remember the commercials back then were
Be all
all
you
you
can
can be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this sounds like let's do this, right? And the internet's not there, so classified was really classified. And I ended up getting into the government's, it's called the 160th SOAR, Special Operations Aviation Regiment Airborne. And they are the world's elite aviation asset for SOCOM, for special operations, Green Berets, Rangers, SEALs, other folks. And they were formed out of the failed hostage rescue of our Americans in the desert right before, when
79.
Jimmy Carter was president and then Reagan became president. And what the government realized after that incident, like we have to have dedicated forces to do this all the time because this is really complicated. So I found out about this unit, long journey, long story. I'm keeping it to less than a minute mostly. And I finally kept at it and I got interviewed remotely and then I got offered what's called a selection.
Okay.
It's like a week-long job interview on steroids and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Like a Hell Week kind of thing.
It's
Like
a really
intense, very
it's a
intense.
really good selection.
Okay, gotcha. So,
And then
stop using
quick
your arm.
summary.
You're not
So
supposed
I
to use
did
your arm.
that job. 9/11 kicked off. I did 31 years total service. I did 6 deployments plus some other junk. I've spent about 5 years of time in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. I also served in 7th Special Forces, a Green Beret unit down in Eglin Air Force Base. And I did CAV units, cavalry, like Apocalypse Now,
Mm-hmm.
like all the aircraft. So I was responsible medically for our warfighting mission medically, and then
Let's
casual.
just sum it up. You were in the military for 3 decades. Does that sound good?
You want to do the boring podcast?
Why? We've only got another 10 minutes in the podcast.
So I got a question for you though, Sean. So like, it is really common when you meet somebody in the military to the people say thank you for your service. Okay, that's like it's like you're supposed to do that almost.
I would. Yeah, go
With
ahead.
Scott and when Scott and I run, people often tell us that we're courageous or we're inspirational, and it makes us absolutely fucking nuts to hear that. I don't want to hear that. When people come up to you just and they find out that you served and they say thank you for your service, like, do you want that? I mean, I'm just
No.
curious.
No.
Okay, tell me why. Because
You know,
that's what I thought.
we need to, we're always getting better and evolving as humans, hopefully. I will tell you, for me and a lot of my colleagues, I think the thing to say is thank you all for your sacrifices, because that includes your families, your spouses, your kids. That includes the people that aren't here, right? So it's not about you, it's about what you decided to do. And so I think a better way to say it, this is me, and, you know, we all got opinions, but to your point, when I hear that, I don't even like, now I kind of dread it. I would prefer we say to each other in whatever space that is, even for like law enforcement and teachers, like, thank you for your sacrifices.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Now, I
Okay.
got a couple questions for you guys, and I'm going to hijack your podcast because that's my mission in life, to be unconventional.
Well, you could ask, but Scott doesn't seem to understand that there's video to this podcast, and he keeps disappearing.
I know. So that's why and Josh, if you just want me to come on, and
He
Scott,
said he was kicking me off the podcast.
I'll be your host in the future. So I want to tell the audience this, because I know some inside stuff. But being a twin and your twin sibling is paralyzed it is a different perspective. But I want to tell the audience that, speaking of patriotism, both these guys independently, they're both twins. And then 9/11 era happens. Actually, no, Desert Storm. So Josh tries to join the military in Desert Storm. And I'm away at basic training, and Scott keeps calling all these recruiters.
Yeah.
And they come out, and then they show up, and they're like, "You're in a wheelchair." And he's like, "What? Don't you need smart people?" And I mean, and you're doing the same.
Just because I got to polish some pavement after an auto accident and a bicycle.
I got turned
I'm
down
like,
when I asked.
I still wanted the free education. I'm like, Chaw's I gotta go get out loans and pay for this thing.
I got
This
turned down
guy's
when I
over here
asked
getting to
college.
play army games every weekend.
Oh my God. So I got turned down when I asked if it was, oh my God. I asked the recruiting officer if the office was wheelchair accessible, and that's where mine kind of went off the rails. I never got the in-person discussion about anything. It was just...
We got 40 minutes in, and he was asking how many pull-ups I could do, how fast I could run a mile, and how many sit-ups, and he's like, "Oh, this is really good." And then he was like, so I got a couple more questions. And to me, this is my recommendation to the United States military forces: ask if they have a disability first, because the guy gets to the very end, and he's like, "Oh,
hey, there is no disability. There's only ability with what you have." This is a doctor. And I literally I did thousands of physicals, entrance physicals, discharge physicals, screening annual. We need to change our entrance medical requirements. We've got a big conflict coming. And I don't care what your disability is. If I listed out the injuries I've had in my career, I think I'm up to 16 surgeries now. Literally, they want to do a total left knee. They tell me I got to do my hip replacement. I'm like, yeah, whatever. This hand is the bone sticking out. They wanted to fuse it. And I'm like, they're like, well, it's going to cause pain. I'm like, yeah, life has pain. This hand scarred and fused. They fused my thumb, whatever. Everybody in the military has their little, oh, crybaby, you got hurt. I don't care. What can you do with what you have? And you can do something for this nation. So Scott's point is right. We need everybody, even the very special podcast guys.
Right. Well, first of all, this is our service to the country, Sean. This podcast is
Yeah,
clearly,
don't underestimate what we're.
clearly
Maybe
important.
Mexico will take us. I'm in. I like
So
cervezas.
I'm going to rotate back to
You think you will?
the issue at hand. So I know. So I have a brother. He's 5 years younger than me, and I know that following my paralysis was viral, so it's a little different. And then I had a number of health problems right after that. But he spent probably to this day a lot of time worrying that something was going to eventually happen to him.
Mm.
Like it can't just happen to me. It can't just happen to my brother. It's got to happen to me as well. And I'm just curious, like when Scott, it was an accident, so it's a little bit different. But did you ever feel that sense of paranoia that maybe something's going to
No.
happen? No.
Nope, I was all in. We don't have look, people. None of us have time to bleed. It's messy. Yeah, don't get sucked into that. That's for me.
Okay.
I realized like that hard awakening. Like you're twin, right?
I don't have a twin.
Oh wait, oh shit, you know a bunch of twins. Oh my God, Jeff, I knew that.
Yeah.
Kevin Orr and all the guys. I don't know why I didn't. I actually slept about an hour and a half last night,
Okay. It's
and I did my first podcast Thursday.
we don't promote other podcasts on our podcast yet.
Yeah. Nah, it's like, you
No,
can't.
We're not
no,
famous
I'm
enough
not.
yet.
There's
But I
only,
opened up my law firm because Kilpatrick and Newland, Keith Kilpatrick is an identical twin. He's an attorney and his twin is a doctor.
Interesting.
Yeah, right?
So you didn't feel that nervousness, but
I didn't, but
it was
I'm
awakening. You said like
it was an that's I like that. Yeah, it was an absolute awakening and a have a mission. Like a
okay.
purpose-driven life. Like literally like I didn't ever want to not be able to help somebody again.
well,
Okay.
but Sean, let me ask you a question. I think another way to put that is like, because I've heard this from other um close in age, just close siblings and stuff, and especially like if they were almost there and then they weren't, but they could have been. It's sort of like that survivor's guilt, which we've never talked about this really. So, Sean, as your current underpaid therapist, I might add, how do you feel about and like that age in all seriousness? Like, I mean, shit, how like why didn't I sleep in and you go? I mean, come on.
I've had that yeah, for a long time. I'm going to talk about it. I think it's the first time we're talking about it.
Yeah, it is for real.
Because, you know, Stoicism, right? Marcus Aurelius, Jeremy Bentham, utilitarianism, greatest good for the greatest number. Like I bury a lot of things, which probably a lot of people listening do, especially when you have injuries or trauma. But you can bury it for a little bit, but you really should address it later or not. Recommend it. Get a horse, hug it. It's all those you run through the gauntlet of emotions. Anger, why him, why not me? I trade places. Yeah, so you run through all that, but none of it's going to change, right? You have to pony up. You have to get into that arena. And I think the best thing, well, talking about it's not a bad idea. Scott, maybe I'll hire you. I've got some coins here from the military.
Sean, I'm going to give you a family discount. I usually charge $400 an hour. So for you, I
Well,
mean,
Scott, if you recall,
$185 an hour.
I put you on my SGLI military insurance, and I try to get all my siblings to bid financially. Why am I paying for life insurance in the military? I'm not going to benefit. One of them is going to win the pay dirt. So I tried to always get them to pay money to me so that they could be my beneficiary.
Listen, we had our fingers crossed on all those deployments, but I just want to say you failed
Nice.
us.
No, they never paid once. So, dude, you owe me
So
for
he's
your
he's
bad
No,
information.
no.
survivor's guilt, and you're just sitting there going, "Too bad you didn't die."
Too bad, too bad, too bad I didn't die. You missed the joke. You would have been in the money.
So let me ask you another question related to that, though, because I do think this absolutely happens to siblings when one of the others is, something happens, and I know it happened to my brother. Did you feel forgotten? Like, was all the focus on Scott? Like, all the focus was on me, and I know my
No,
brother.
well, that's interesting. So, what also happened in our family at that time? It was during the recession in the early '80s, and we were all healthy, and our parents, were pretty solid, logical parents financially, but they had a small family business and they had saved up for like 15 years and had made that jump to build a house. And between the business and paying the small, the employees and
Savings and loan crash hit.
yeah, and so they had to make an adjustment. So they decided to drop health insurance.
Before your accident?
Yeah, right before.
Oh God.
So
Perfect.
Oh, God.
aside from like, yeah, my mom and dad were doing all this stuff for Scott, but like finances were really tight, and I'm like, no, there's no time. There's no time for pity party, people.
So
And so for me, I just kind of in my um eighth grade pre-freshman mind, freshman year, like shut the blankety blank up. And then our grandparents were all like surviving the Great Depression, and we go there and everything you ate everything on the plate. They loved the heck out of us. You put it on your plate, you ate it, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm
you
like,
grew it.
yeah. And if you woke up in the morning, you get the same plate in the morning. Oh, you're up. Love
I
you.
went to one of your family reunions. I don't know if you remember it, Scott.
I do actually.
And
Yeah,
we drove through
yeah,
that
you
Amish
did.
town, and
Yeah,
yeah, it was crazy. But
Was it crazy?
it was it was just outside of Champaign. But I also want to ask this question to Scott too, because I feel some guilt that I took all the attention away from my brother, because I absolutely see the effect it had on him. Did you ever feel like later, especially later in life, and you were doing things also athletically, you're getting a lot of media attention. Meantime, Sean is actually operating in this world where it's like it's completely hidden.
Right, right.
So, did you ever
Well,
feel a little guilt over that?
I mean,
And if not, why not? You should.
I mean, Scott, it's unfair. He used his tactical advantage
yeah.
of his gimpiness to win like homecoming king
I
and
mean,
shit.
it wasn't.
And
We so
but I did date most of his girlfriends.
it was a mixed bag in the sense it's like Sean was, still out there, like he was class president and like on the science club or whatever, but he was also playing football and wrestling and getting jobs. Like I would try to go get jobs, and the first like four jobs I applied for, they're just like, I don't think so. And I'm like, are you really? And and so I mean, I would do certain things. Like I actually walked beans and picked weeds out of mile-long bean rows in my wheelchair the summer after it was a year after I got hurt. But like we were on the swim team together still. But like, I mean, I'm just getting my whole world disappeared, and so it was hard to go and like watch my identical twin brother at times because it was
Yeah.
like kind of wish I could do that. And so yeah, like when my mom.
A couple of passes that I'd have gladly been like,
Yeah.
Scott, you got this one.
So my dad was just like, you just need to step up your A game. So I did. I took one of his girlfriends or something and started dating her. I don't remember, but well, it's a small town, Josh, so that actually did happen.
We did used to, you know how you have the phone with the cord? Kids
Yeah.
don't even know what those are anymore.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just do like the signal, like, come here, and then we just pass the phone.
Yeah,
They-
I'm actually going to ask question. I have a question about
Yeah.
that, and maybe this is a
Yeah.
good time to just go to it. So, like,
So
it's tough
no, I
to do now
didn't.
that one can walk, but
Yeah, and the
Well,
other thing
yeah.
that was going on, Josh, is like, so my parents were like, our school system didn't want me to go back
Right.
because they were just like, well, we've always sent those kids with disabilities over to DeKalb, which was Northern Illinois University. It's like 22 miles away. And my parents were kind of like, we got three in high school together. Like we're, logistically, we'd rather just see him go here. So that was, and part of that process, the school actually had 11 different levels because over 100 years they just add some rooms over there, we'll throw in a few steps, and so it was logistically tough. And so freshman year we made it work. Freshman year, most of your classes are on what was the largest level, which was the quote unquote the first level. But then it got really weird because like they were like, well, we're gonna have to move Spanish down from the second floor, and my dad's like, well, get a lift or something. Like we built our own lift in the garage. We went and got one of those like engine lifts, they're like $300 and strapped it up to the rafters and built an elevator effectively. But they were just all like, well, we don't want to do that. And my dad was kind of like, pretty sure it's the law. It's called the Equal Education for All Handicapped Children Act. And my dad was like he was into that stuff. Like he'd go to the Northern Illinois University library on the weekend and just look up the law and then walk back in. Well, that doesn't make friends at the school board or with the school administration. But he knew how to play the game as well. So we got into it big time, ended up going to federal court. The school like retaliated on stuff. Like
That's why
it
I did.
was,
I got to
it
be in
was
the
like
classroom.
I wasn't for the most part having a great time with a lot
Yeah.
of that,
And
and like,
Scott, so they wouldn't let us be in the same classes because that would have made too much sense, common sense. Like I could just bump him. They would not let us do that. And we were like, it was like a bad game of Game of Thrones, like Winter's Coming, and we became more and more fiercely loyal. Like there was one time some guy in a hurry like bumped you, and didn't you tumble down the stairs? And Jamie was there.
He's touching his computer.
But hey, Josh, let's roll with it. So
Yeah.
he can tell me if it's wrong because I wasn't there. Some dude, I forget the guy, but I think my sister like tore into him like because he just plowed over the kid in the wheelchair.
Uh-huh.
So we became more and more.
you
I
know,
think
bring you
I think it
together.
drove
And
us to be more engaged and just, oh, you tell me I can't do this, we'll do more and more and more and more. And our track coach, like by the end, our track coach, the first year they wanted Scott, they wouldn't let him race. They wanted him to be the aide or helper water boy.
yeah, I was team manager.
That's where the movie inspiration Waterboy came from.
Yeah.
And then love Adam Sandler. Adam, if you see us, these guys need sponsors. Anyway, the second year Scott's like, I'm on a race. Well, our coach had twin daughters, Coach Scott,
In our class.
amazing, in our class, and
Interesting.
they were on track. And then what happened was the track team just kind of joined more and more. We're like, we would go to races and they would stop all the running and the wheelchair guy would do his own race around the track by himself. Then they would start the track meet back up. And we had schools cancel meets. They're like, our policy says.
By the way, the first year that they didn't want me doing anything, I had a big clamshell on, and so I'd tape everybody up, and I would just push my everyday Josh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd just push it around in circles, and then my grandpa was like, because we had seen 1984, like I knew there was this thing called wheelchair racing out there. I didn't know about it, but I knew that they had like these chairs. So my grandma and grandpa started subscribing to Sports and Spokes, which is this
Interesting.
magazine about wheelchair sports. And grandpa saw this ad for this used racing wheelchair from a guy in California that was about my size. And so he's like, he ended up getting the chair. And so then I had this chair. It was horrible. I mean, it had like bungee cords on
And
it.
his first sponsor was a funeral home.
Yeah, but so anyway, so then I'm starting wheeling. Well,
Survivor Hill.
that's when the school really started pushing back, which was really more about just general physical access to, like, they were kind of like their thing was like, well, we're not going to move the biology class and we're not going to put in an elevator. And so the first year we had our neighbor, great friend Brent Olinger, because Sean had already started pulling me up steps. We called it bumping. And we got really good at it. I mean, we were super strong. We were young. And so we would just, and then they tried to say, oh, that's a liability. It's a thing. And it's like, what? Like, it's a liability for anybody to walk downstairs. And they just kept pushing back and went like that. So what they did was they were just their solution was, you're not taking Spanish. You're not taking biology. We're not moving classes. And my dad held the line. And so what they did was they retaliated on the sports stuff. So they'd pick up the phone and they started coming back and saying, if I got on the track, it would void the warranty. I was a danger to others, all kinds of stuff. And they're calling other schools to be like, will you cover my back?
Mm-hmm.
So, but then the students first started with the track team, and we had 730 kids in the school. 580 of them signed a petition to oppose the school's discriminatory practices. I mean, it got wild, dude. And it did end up in federal court, and the school.
Coach, one time, at least once, maybe more, our coach was finally like, then these schools would push back in the district. And the coach was like, well, then we're not going to have the track meet.
Yeah, like the athletes said, if you're not going to let Scott go, none of us are coming. And then by the next time, the coach is like, yeah, including the coaches, like, we're not coming to your school. This is like really discriminatory.
So
And then